Mario Kart Wii has some interesting textures to say the least, so let's talk about them. Starting off on Moonview Highway, if you come over to this ridge and look down at the grassy field below, you'll notice that the grass texture down here is not actually grass but rather some kind of treetop. Every other grassy surface on this track uses one of these two textures. The outer hills over here are covered in this almost necrotic looking grass pattern, and the smaller hills that are closer to the racetrack have this fuzzier grass texture. But then down here you've got a very different design that doesn't appear anywhere else. I don't think it appears anywhere else in the entire game. What's interesting about this is that there are trees growing out of the top of the canopy, meaning that technically these trees here are roughly twice the height of the trees over here, since they're growing multiple meters above the canopy of trees. It seems like such an odd decision to me why the developers would make this section of the map, which is only visible for a few seconds, a completely unique texture. You know, why not just use one of these two textures that you already have? It's not like anybody would notice or be affected by it in any way. Also, this texture kind of reminds me of a plate of ravioli, so that's cool. Moving on to Cooper Cape, have you ever noticed that this fence post here is actually a tiny little pipe? How adorable is that? And not only that, but the two posts holding up the Mario Kart sign at the start of the track are also two long and skinny pipes. Cooper Cape actually has a bit of a hexagon theme running throughout the whole track. Hexagonal designs can be found on the inside of the blue shell here as you drive through it. You can even find some inside the underwater tunnel here. And even the turtle shell in the middle of these spinning zapper things is made up of hexagons. But that's not all. There are hexagons on the edge of the little riverbed grate texture that follows the entire river. You can also find hexagons on the background of this billboard here and both of these signs. And even these track barrier things have tiny little hexagon indents in them. Bowser's Castle is pretty cool too. Similar to Cooper Cape's hexagonal theme, it has a lot of stars incorporated throughout the level. You can see stars in the walls above the lava here. You can also see star patterns all over the dirt on the outside sections of the castle. And just like Cooper Cape, they're incorporated into the design of the little track barrier things down here. Now, have a look at this mesh grate in Bowser's Castle. You would think, with a game as old as Mario Kart Wii, a grate texture as simple as this would be reused anytime they needed it. But if we go back to Cooper Cape, you'll see that the grate here has a completely different design. And not only that, but it's also hexagonal, keeping with the running theme of the track. Now, I don't know if the developers went out and specifically sought after a hexagonal mesh just for Cooper Cape, or they already had it and it just happened to be a perfect match for the theme. Either way, it's cool that they had a unique texture for both of these maps, and the fact that Cooper Cape's grate matches the track's subtle theming. While we're on the topic, why don't we have a look at all the mesh designs in Mario Kart Wii? Luigi Circuit has this diamond-shaped fence which looks pretty similar to a real-world chain-link fence. Toad's Factory also uses a very similar design, and I'm not entirely sure if they're actually different textures between these two, or if they're the same except one's just been squished down. It's kinda hard to tell. Alright, now try this conspiracy on for size. Right at the end of Maple Treeway there's this giant bouncing net, and it looks very similar to the Luigi Circuit fence texture that I just showed off. Now, I don't want to make any accusations here, but I'm pretty sure these two are the same texture, just recolored, which, if that is the case, is an amazingly cool use of resources. Speaking of grates, does anybody else think the stairs in Coconut Mall look like cheese graters? This water texture is the same texture as the mud, just a different color and with a ripple effect. Which is also the same water texture used in Dry Ruins, same as Luigi Circuit, same as Mario Circuit, same as Daisy Circuit, except here it's piss colored. It's actually kinda crazy how many times this one water texture is reused. Like here on Peach Beach, it's layered twice on top of itself to give it depth, and then moving and rippled to look like waves washing up against the sand. On Cooper Cape, they've done essentially the same, except the size of it is all blown up. On Yoshi Falls, it's all blurred and distorted. And Waluigi Stadium uses this texture twice, in two separate ways, just like Toad's Factory. Oh, I'm sorry, you thought I was done talking about the water texture? First of all, no. And secondly, how dare you? Sherbetland uses this texture. Peach Gardens uses this texture. Delfino Square uses this texture. even though it's super obscured, you can still just make it out all the way down there. DK's Jungle Parkway uses this texture. Shy Guy Beach is the only still body of water that doesn't use that same texture. At least, I don't think it does. It's genuinely hard to tell if that's a low-res version of our new favorite water design or not. And just for the record, this water texture appears on 19 out of the 32 tracks in this game. Now that's what I call value. But in actual seriousness, I think this is really cool. The Wii is notoriously known for being an underpowered console, and when game developers are faced with constraints like hardware limitations, they have to get creative, and this is a really amazing example of that. Reusing the same water texture on a ton of different tracks but giving it a different identity to suit the aesthetic of each track is such a brilliant way of saving resources without sacrificing creative integrity. And if you're anything like me, you probably never even noticed how many times this texture is reused, because it's done so well and so sneakily that it doesn't ever feel like you're seeing the same thing multiple times over. Oh, one last fact about the water texture is that this texture isn't even originally from Mario Kart Wii. It's reused from Double Dash. And it was also used in Mario Kart DS. Holy shit, talk about value. Are you able to see the shape of this maple? If you can believe it, Maple Treeway has got a bit of a maple theme going on throughout the whole track. You can see a maple leaf pattern along the side of the road on the ground, and you can also see it in the road barriers. You can see it here, and here, and here, and here, and here. This sign on Moo Moo Meadows just says Mario Racing, which sounds like a knockoff bootleg version of Mario Kart. Like, why not just write Mario Kart instead, just like most other signs in this game? And can anyone let me know if the term Mario Racing is ever used anywhere else in a Mario game? I mean, at least it's not as pointless as this sign on Mushroom Gorge that just says mushroom. That's like putting a sign in a forest that just says tree. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong, but you're also not really helping very much. Coconut Mall has this sign plastered up around the whole mall, which has a star, a mushroom, and a flower icon next to the word toilets. Is Mario Kart Wii implying that there are in fact 3 genders? Also, this sign has no arrows or any indicators for anything it mentions, so good luck trying to find a toilet with this information. And on the topic of Coconut Mall's deceptive signage, this food vendor is called Coco Burger, yet they don't actually sell a coconut burger on their menu. Shout out to these 2 signs on Moonview Highway that are basically impossible to read while driving past. This one, half of it's behind the wall. This house on Mario Circuit has no door, only windows. And this house over here doesn't have any doors or windows. There's also a bunch of subtle little designs in the floors and walls that give each track a little extra character. Like in Daisy Circuit, there's a bunch of flowers inlaid in the roads. Cooper Cape has a bunch of little seashells and starfish scattered all along the edge of the sandy parts of the racetrack. Moonview Highway has these weird donut shapes in the road around where you start, which I have no idea what they're supposed to be, but they look cool. And aside from Rainbow Road's road being a rainbow, you can also see a starry night reflected within the texture. And there's a little star pattern that runs all along the edges. Lastly, in Delfino Square, this house is partially made out of mushrooms. A little later, you can find this Pianta selling what looks to be more mushrooms. So tell me, is this man selling fresh produce or building materials? One other thing, these snow-covered logs on DK Summit look kind of like a frosted pastry type thing, and now I'm hungry. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video entertaining, a like and subscribe is super appreciated. And let me know if there's any interesting textures you've come across in Mario Kart Wii. My name's Plura, for some reason. Thanks for watching.